Kyle is the director of players recruitment for the OHL. He's a former player in the OHL. He played for the Brampton Battalion, who's now the North Bay Battalion, and he was with the Guelph Storm. He won the leadership award. This is what I love about when I have my guests. I always try to put the best people in here. And Kyle won the leadership award as well as a community hero and humanitarian. That's a big word. Humanitarian award with while he was in Guelph. He won the Roger Neilson Award in 2012, and that's the top post-secondary student in the OHL. One of our previous guests, Derek Lanoux, did that a couple times as well. So we've got some brains as well as being an athlete. And then after completing his 4 years in the OHL, Kyle used his package to go to continue his playing career, and then he got his master's at St. Mary's University. He's got his master's in business. So that's it, Kyle. That's all I'm going to talk. That's all I've got. It's your turn now. I want to welcome you, and I want you to actually go ahead and just to get the ball rolling. Tell us about your experience in the OHL. Tell us how you got your job as your director, and what your job entails. Go ahead.
Awesome. Well, Andy, thanks so much for that introduction. I appreciate it. That was fantastic. It seems like a long while ago that all those things took place, but I do appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here. I'd be remiss if I didn't, thank you for having me first and foremost. Love what you're doing here with Puckface and these webinars and getting information out there for young players, aspiring players, and their families is huge, because it can be challenging. Decision making processes are often difficult, and I think it's really important to get a lot of information, and certainly accurate information out there. So I commend you for that, and like I said, thank you for having me. To answer your question, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I played in the league, like you'd mentioned, myself. From 2008 to 2012, I played for Brampton and for Guelph, and I think going back to that, I started my it was a 6th round pick by Brampton, and spent my first year playing junior A, and frankly unsure of what decision I was going to make as it pertained to my hockey career, and of course ended up going to the OHL, and best decision I've made in my life for sure. Used the education package that I'm sure we'll discuss further to finish my undergrad, as well as like you mentioned, my master's in business administration. And in a lot of ways, that OHL scholarship really was the springboard for my life. And now coming into this role, it really is full circle. I'm thrilled to be working with the OHL and really helping young players and young families, because like I said, it is important. It is a difficult decision, and I'm glad to be and proud to be representing the OHL and sharing all of the exceptional developments that we've made as a league as it pertains to education, scholarship, and of course the development side of things. My job, as it pertains to the day-to-day, I work a lot with at the team level, doing presentations, going out there and really, like I said, addressing maybe some misconceptions that do exist about the league, but really sharing more about what we do have to offer from a development and education and scholarship standpoint, and then meeting individually with players and families as well. And I think there's a very close overlap there to the development side of things, and certainly the alumni side of things as well, where we have an alumni mentorship group and things like that really help the recruitment process, frankly, but also contribute to the experience that our players have after graduating from the league. So a little bit long-winded, but I hope that answered your question there, Andy.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So okay, that's awesome. Let's go to obviously you're an intelligent person. You're a smart guy. You wouldn't get hired in an executive position with the league, and you wouldn't have got a master's in business if you weren't a fairly intelligent person. So the question I have for you to start off would be, because this is something I'm really, when the rubber meets the road, we have to make decisions for our kids. And as you met my son Charlie, he's a pretty good player, and he plays in a group of kids with really good players. They're at the age where they got to make a decision, and some of them don't really have to make a decision, but it's out there. You want to do as a parent, because we do these webinars for parents, coaches, and players. We want to make the right decisions for our players. And like you said, there's preconceived notions in college. There's preconceived notions in the OHL. So you're intelligent. You had a choice, probably, I assume, to choose maybe a college scholarship in the States or the OHL. And just curious, what led you to that decision?
Mhm. Yeah, that was the case. I was in a fortunate position where, at the time I was drafted by the hometown team in the Brampton Battalion, and frankly, I probably wasn't ready to play in the OHL as a 16-year-old. Anyways, it's certainly a big jump, and one that is for certainly elite players. I was in a fortunate position where I was actually going to school at St. Mike's at the time. I'd played 1 year junior A with the St. Mike's Buzzers. And, through that year, there was some interest through the minor midget year. Prior to, there was some interest on the school side of things south of the border. And frankly, I did explore it. I went on a couple of visits, and I feel like I really gave both options, a lot of thought and a lot of consideration, and ultimately, Andy, what ended up making the decision for me was twofold. Education in my family had always been extremely important. My parents always took it very seriously. Growing up, I always took it very seriously as well, and and was strong academically. And then when I compared the options that I had at that time, I looked at the hockey side of things, and I mean, statistically speaking, the OHL is the best development league as it pertains to, numbers at the NHL level and to draft picks and things like that. But, it really gave me an opportunity as well to further my academic career. And, I was able to do both of those things. I was able to achieve academic goals as well as hockey ones. Of course, like most of us, the dream didn't end, in the NHL for me, but I can confidently say that looking back on that decision, I'd make it, 100 times over when I consider the fact that ultimately I used that scholarship. I played 4 of the best years in my life. In the OHL, I went on to university, played 5 great years, of USports hockey at St. Mary's, and then ultimately was able to turn that scholarship into 2 separate degrees and provide a springboard for my life. So, while it didn't end in the NHL, I really owe, a lot to the OHL and where the position that it put me in. And like I said, looking back on that decision, it certainly was the right one for me, and I'm really glad that it's come full circle in terms of, now being back and hopefully able to share some of that knowledge with the next wave of young players.
Yeah, what I like about the OHL is if you have the ability to play there, like going to colleges, sometimes you're not sure what to do in between like the 16, 17, 18, 19. And I think for especially a Canadian kid, when you're looking at it, is like, will it still be there in 2-3 years? Right. So it was, for me, that was one of the things. I knew I could step in the OHL and play. So that's one of the things. So speaking of the school package, I might take this 2 different ways.
Yep.
Can I get you to explain as much detail and as much as you can about the quality of the school packages? And I'll let you go on that tangent, but I also want to just make maybe it's not a question, it's a point. What I found with a lot of people, including myself, is that once hockey was over in the OHL, you're 20 years old, and a lot of kids still have the dream of playing the NHL. So back when I played, this is like in the 80s, you only had I can't even remember for sure if it was when you were done your career, you went straight, you had to use your school package right away, or there was a small period of time that you didn't, or that small period of time where you could explore playing the East Coast League or American League or something, then you had to use it within a period of time. So what I tell kids, so this is my point, what I tell kids when they go, because I've trained a lot of American kids too that have come to the OHL, I said, listen, here's the thing. You got a school package, and if you have a chance to play pro, that's fine. But there's a period of time where you have to be mature enough, like you were, to say, okay, I don't think I'm going to play in the NHL. Let's take advantage of this school package, and I think that's the key. So, anyways, go ahead. Long-winded for me. Huh?
No, it's a great question, and frankly, for me, probably the most important, and certainly the most important thing that we offer our players, and in my opinion, the most important piece from a recruitment perspective. And frankly, in a lot of cases, the most unknown piece as well. The scholarship, I'll start there, is twofold. Okay, and they're two very distinct, different pieces of it, and I want to make sure I'm going to continue to reiterate that. But essentially, the first part of what the scholarship and the education takes place while a player is still active on an OHL roster, still playing in the OHL. The second part only kicks in when the player graduates from the OHL. So the first thing, while a player is active, first and foremost, it's frankly not a decision between hockey or school. When making a decision to come to the OHL, you are not making a decision whether you're going to go to school or whether you're going to play hockey. The expectation is that you do both, both at the high school level and at the post-secondary level. So while a player is active, they've got 2, potentially 3 years in our league where they're no longer in high school and can be taking university credits. And the expectation is that they're taking some sort of further education credits, be it college, university, different certificate programs, whatever the case. During that time period, all of the classes that a player takes is 100% covered by the team at no cost to the player. Now, where that becomes critical is that those classes that a player can, for lack of a better term, put in the bank while they're playing in our league, do not in any way, shape, or form take away from the scholarship that player has earned that kicks in upon graduation from the league. So I can get into the particulars of what that looks like, but as a practical example, and I like to use examples as much as possible, but for me, I had 3 years in the league where I was out of high school. At that point, I'd put almost a year and a half worth of university credits, in the bank that I had completed. I had earned 4 years worth of scholarship afterwards from when I graduated from the league, because I played 4 years. And so essentially that turned my 4-year scholarship into a 5.5-year scholarship, just based on the fact that I'd already done a year and a half that was bought and paid for. And why that becomes critical is that, advanced, or those courses that I'd done while I was playing is frankly what afforded me the opportunity to use my OHL scholarship for my undergrad as well as my MBA, because I go into school, I only have 2.5 years worth of undergrad remaining, and then I can complete the MBA in the last year and a half, which is effectively what I did. So a huge piece there, and you might get certain players especially who create this narrative that, well, no, I can't take post-secondary classes when I play in the OHL because I've got to focus on hockey. And our response to that is essentially, in our approach is, you're a hockey player for 3-4 hours a day. What are you going to be for the rest of the day? From experience, taking 2 or 3 university classes per semester while I was playing, in no way, shape, or form did that take away from my ability to focus on hockey. And certainly in no way, shape, or form did that, did I feel like that was a hindrance to my OHL experience as a whole. So I guess that's the portion when a player is still active in our league. And now the scholarship upon graduation is mandated through the league office. So it's centralized or centrally administered through the league office. We have a full-time employee, Christina Laystrom, who is the director of education services and deals with that. So for each year that a player plays in the OHL, they're entitled to, at a minimum, a scholarship is 1 year for 1 year of tuition, books, and compulsory fees based on the university closest to their home. So each summer we will get, Christina will get essentially a guide of all the Ontario universities and universities within our American state jurisdiction, and have the values of each of those schools for tuition, books, and fees. And then at that point, when a player is executing their standard player agreement, their scholarship would be based on that annual dollar value. That is the same for American or European players, where the same criteria, the same standard approach applies. The difference is that, of course, they will receive their scholarship value in their own native currency as well. So for the American players, of course, this can be a benefit also if, you end up going and playing Canadian university or leveraging that scholarship. afterwards. So, like I said, just to reiterate, at a minimum, is league mandated a year played equals a year of scholarship. One game would constitute a year, and that's how that works. The other thing I wanted to note is that, and I think it's important, is that the scholarship is designed to be incredibly flexible. There's a reason why we don't restrict it, and that's because at the end of the day we realize that all of our players may have different goals, aspirations, when it comes to their career and their life outside or of life beyond hockey, and we don't want to inhibit that. We want to facilitate the growth wherever they would like that to be. So the scholarship dollar value is actually applicable in any post-secondary institution across the world, and as well as trade schools, real estate courses. We've had people do osteopathy, firefighting, police foundations, different things like that, where no, who are we to tell you that you have to go to university? The reality is that that's not for everybody. But the goal of the program is to make sure that, we're ultimately facilitating and helping to be a springboard for the futures of our alumni, whatever those goals or aspirations are beyond hockey.
Awesome. And you know what? Every parent that has a child playing hockey, I don't think there's one person out there that wouldn't want their kids' university or college paid for. And that was interesting because I never even thought of that when we talked last week and then again today about just the college or just a smaller certificate than the university. So it's actually pretty flexible. But the one question I had is you mentioned the university closest to your home. Now, does that mean, so I'm in Windsor. Does that mean when I'm done my OHL career, is the value of the package based on what Windsor tuition fees are, and I can use it somewhere else? Or is it, I'm just not a little unclear on that.
Yeah. So just for the purposes of standardization, so the goal, so the program is, of course, standardized through the league office. Like I said, when it comes to executing the scholarships, all the institutions, for example, will bill the league directly. The player's not responsible for reimbursement or any of those things. It's a very seamless experience, and frankly, an easy experience for the player and for their family when it comes to executing that. But in that standardization process, yes, that dollar value is based on the university closest to mom and dad's home. So, if that's University of Windsor, whatever that tuition amount for University of Windsor is, that's the dollar value that would be attached to the scholarship. And again, that doesn't mean you have to go to University of Windsor. You can take that wherever you want, certainly in Canada, in the world. But that's how that works in terms of, there's no real negotiation as it comes to dollar values.
Okay. So if you, and just being clear for myself more than anything. So if I live in Chicago and I went to a Chicago university, it'd be based on that. If I lived in London or Kitchener and it was a higher tuition.
Well, and I mean, you look at, like I said, with the American-born players, for example, of course, it's A, it's U.S. dollars. B, generally tuition costs in certain cases are higher there. But again, that's the university that's closest to their home, and we're it's the same across the board as far as that goes. So if you're in London, it's Western. If you're in Windsor, it's Windsor. If you're in Michigan, it's whatever one's closest there as well.
Okay, perfect, awesome. Now, as far as so if there's any questions there, folks, fire a few in there. You're actually very clear on explaining that, though, Kyle. Thank you. So now we're talking. Let's go straight to just the hockey right now for a minute. We've got the OHL has always been the largest producer of NHL hockey players. Back when I played in the 80s, and I actually coached the Sudbury Wolves a couple of years, the colleges were not, the number of players coming from colleges weren't as high as they typically are now. So there's a little bit, it's a bigger world, I guess, and there's a little bit more competition from the colleges a little bit anyways. What's your take on that? Why and how is the OHL continuing to produce players at a high pace, at a high
Yeah.
level.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, historically, obviously the OHL has really been a leader in player development and producing players in the National Hockey League, and that still, reigns true today. What I'll say to that is, and the other options that do exist for players now, this is not to say that those are bad ones, but what my opinion and the way that the OHL views, development is very holistic. And what I mean by that is that, of course, each team has their, very elite level coaches. You see, I mean, just yesterday, again, another alumni of ours gets a head coaching job in the NHL, and Sheldon Keefe, and you saw DJ Smith this past year, and certainly a guy like Kyle Dubas who came through the league. Development, of course, is on ice when it pertains to, the coaching that you're exposed to, the off-ice training that you're exposed to, the skills coaches, the skating coaches, nutritionists, mental performance coaches. The game has evolved. It's more demanding physically and mentally than it's ever been. And I think that that's, a focal point for us as well. But just to park that hockey side of it for a second, when I talk about development and talk about holistic development, I think that's a big impact as well. Education, as far as I'm concerned, is tied into development. Involvement in your community is tied into development. These are all expectations that are upon players at the next level, and frankly, being exposed to it at this age is huge. I joke, but having a 16-year-old walk into an elementary school, or a 17, 18-year-old walk into an elementary school to a team full of, or a gymnasium full of grade threes that don't know the difference between you and Connor McDavid, and you're going to deliver a speech or do a seminar. There's extremely valuable life lessons that are applicable both in hockey and outside of hockey in doing something like that. And then the programs that are in place as well. I think that, the access to information that the players get, whether that's social media training, a very in-depth partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association, the partnership with the Canadian Center for Ethics in Sport, respect for women policies. And we've really been, in a lot of ways, a leader in that. I think it all comes down to the player experience. And frankly, the numbers are still exceptionally strong. Since the inception of the NHL draft, the OHL is responsible for 20% of all players drafted. I mean, you look over the last 5 years, we still lead the way in forwards drafted, defensemen drafted, players drafted in the top 2 rounds. And again, and probably the most impressive one, Andy, is that over the last 5 years, and frankly, I didn't even know this until I'd started working with the league and having played in it myself, but over the last 5 years, over a quarter, 26% of NHL's opening day rosters are OHL alumni, which when you break that down to, a 20-team OHL, be responsible for over a quarter of the NHL's opening day rosters. It's a pretty impressive, pretty impressive number over a 5-year sample size. And, again, I think that it's one thing to get players drafted, but then, having players that are ready to make the jump and step in and contribute, that really ties back into the holistic side of things. And, the development that occurs on the ice, certainly, but also the development that, that we've looked and the things that we put in place for our players, outside of hockey as well. And that's truly, I think, in my opinion, is a huge thing. And where this all ties back, and our approach as a league, just so that is, these programs and the community events and the education, it's all centered around the player experience. And why that's important, people say, well, what about the player experience? It's a business. Well, the reality, Andy, is that without an exceptionally strong player experience, we don't necessarily get the elite players. Without the elite players, it becomes a business thing very quickly. And so these are all things that we put in place to make sure that we're setting our players up for success on the ice. But more importantly, we want to make sure that they're set up for life after they leave our league, whether that's taking the scholarship and going to policing, whether that's going to university and getting a degree, or whether that's continuing their hockey careers at the National Hockey League or professional levels.
Awesome. Yeah, the holistic approach I like. One thing that the Spitfires in our hometown does, they do a great job. They're in the community all the time, and it's good. And like you said, like even with when I'm teaching kids in hockey, the younger that they get, the less they relate to me. So I have a group of great, phenomenal leaders, just like the kids that we're talking about, the kids that have grown up in my system and they've learned how to be leaders and they're great with kids. But those guys relate a lot better to a 20-year-old or a 23-year-old guy than a 50-year-old man like myself. But so you mentioned something about, well, let me go here first. Just as this is your opinion, it doesn't have to be a fact. What's your opinion on, because last week we had college hockey speaking on the webinar, and college hockey has, they practice every day, play 2 games a week. OHL, we practice 5 days a week, let's say we practice, or how did I do that backwards? We play more than we practice, or equal. I don't know what I just said, something like that. But anyways, there's 2 games a week at college, and they say that there's more time for practice. OHL, we play 60, or what is it, 70 games now?
68.
Yeah, 68 games now, so there's more games. Your opinion, do you think that's a reason why we developed in the OHL a steadier pace of NHL players?
I think it certainly is a factor. It's definitely, the schedule is definitely very pro-like in that sense, in terms of the number of games that the players play and this type of schedule that they're supposed to. Whether or not that specifically is a direct impact, I'd like to think that it's the other stuff that has a bigger impact than just the number of games. But definitely I think that that plays a factor, because the reality is, unless even if you walk straight into the National Hockey League, you're jumping right to an 82 game schedule, which from 68 is probably less of a jump than it might be from much less than that. But just with the travel, and that's maybe a bigger adjustment, because the travel in our league really isn't that bad. But the schedule definitely, I think, has an impact, but I wouldn't say that it is more impactful than the checks and balances and programs and development features that the league and that the individual teams put in place.
Right. Cool. Okay. So I got one more question, then we're going to take, I've got about a whole pile here from people. Okay. So a day in the life in the OHL. So I was talking to one of my college kids in the summertime. I hadn't really had a chance to really, because I wasn't a college guy. So I asked, what's it like? Like, tell me what it's like. He goes, I really like it. And it's, I get up in the morning and I eat, and we've got a cafeteria where we get to eat, we get to sleep, I get my homework, we work out every day, we practice, and he really enjoyed it. On the other side, I had one of my students that I trained that plays for North Bay, your former team. He's a rookie this year, and he was asking me just for some footwork drills, and I said, yeah, for sure, I'll get them for you. And I said, Ryan, how's it going up there? Like, what's going on? And he goes, oh, I love it. He goes, I absolutely love it. It's a dream come true. I said, what are you doing? Are you working out? He goes, yeah. So he laid out his day. And of course, it's not new to me, but for a lot of people, you may not understand this. So I've worked with the Spitfires and Sarnia Sting and doing skills with them. And I got a really up close view of what the OHL is doing now compared to the way it was when I played. And his day's laid out for him, and it was fantastic with skills coach, fitness coach, practice every day, and tutors and all that stuff. So can you explain the life of an OHL hockey player?
Yeah, so generally a day in the life, truthfully, just given the age bracket that it is, it differs slightly depending on what stage you are in the OHL, because of course you've got players that are in high school and you've got players that are at the post-secondary level. which, the expectations are, of course, a little bit different. First and foremost, all practices are, of course, scheduled, around the high school schedule. In no way, shape, or form would academics ever be compromised for practice schedule or anything else. A high school player generally perhaps might do a workout before school, which I believe they do in North Bay.
Yep.
Go to school, and then they're at practice after the school day. Again, team to team, it might vary. That might mean 3:00 for some teams. That might mean 3:30 for others. Maybe 2:30 for others. But after school, they're at practice, and then home to their billets afterwards. To do school and all those sorts of things. At the post-secondary level, players are expected to be enrolled in some sort of, post-secondary program. If they're not in class, on campus, a lot of them take online programs. They're expected to be at the rink in the morning for what would be called a breakfast club. That might be, a workout. Something along those lines, taking care of your body, depending on how close you are, to a game day, that will be adjusted slightly. And then there's, of course, a few hour gap in between breakfast club and practice, which is where the bulk of community involvement happens. So the players that are outside of high school, shoulder a lot of the load as it pertains to being active in their community, because they do have those few hours in between where they're not, if they're not in class on a university or college campus, and they would do it there. And then again, similarly after that, whether there's, video in and around practice time, and then they're home to their billets to make sure that their academics or everything like that is taken care of as well. Every team must have a day off a week. That means a day completely away from the rink, off the ice, no workouts, no community events, no nothing. So that's actually league mandated. Generally that's a Monday. For most teams would play 2 to 3 games in a weekend. That might mean, Friday, Sunday. That might mean Thursday, Friday, Sunday. In certain cases that might mean Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Mondays is generally a rest and reset day, and get prepared for the coming week. Mixed in that as well, depending on the student, academically, things like tutors are all covered by the teams if that is required. So players might be seeking extra help in school for whatever they may be. That will be coordinated through the academic advisor, through the team, and that's all things that kind of periodically would take place through the week, depending on the player and the situation that they're in as well.
Fantastic. Wow. The part about having a day off, I didn't know that existed, and I'm pretty heavily involved. Sorry,
I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, I got relaxed and I was covering my microphone. I said the day off thing, I didn't know existed, and I was working with the Spits up until a couple of years ago. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah,
that's a good thing. Yeah, awesome. Okay, I'm going to go away from my questions for a little bit. I got a bunch here, so we got to get to a few.
Perfect.
Been great. It's been fantastic so far, Kyle. Awesome.
Appreciate it. Hope it's helpful.
No, it is. This is one I didn't think of earlier because so some kids. I'm gonna preface it first. Okay, I got drafted as an underage. I was 16 years old playing, and it wasn't. I didn't think it was going to be a big transition. I thought because my skill was going to be good enough, and once I got to the league, I was like, oh my gosh, I was about 169 pounds, 5'9.5", and I was playing against some big hairy men at the time, and it was like, wow. But the hockey is not the part that I had an issue with. It was the life. It was like you're dealing with 20-year-old guys, 19-year-old guys. I found that to be the biggest adjustment for me. Yes, of course, the hockey was incredible. So the question here is, some kids might move away at 16 years old. Do the teams do anything to help ease the transition for the young guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the biggest thing when it comes to, moving away, and a question, frankly, that I get frequently from parents is all surrounding the billet process. What I'll say about that is the billet, selection and screening process is extremely thorough and includes walkthroughs from the teams, team personnel, police checks, all sorts of things. They've been vetted, extremely thoroughly before, being able to billet. In most cases, players will have, will be able to be involved in the selection process. And should there ever be an issue that billet, that player will be moved, and whatever the case, teams do the best that they can to try to make the billet environment as similar to the one at home as possible. Again, I mentioned examples, but for me, I was living at home in Brampton, playing for the Battalion, then of course got traded to Guelph. And the way that I like to compare that sort of thing, and I don't believe it's a coincidence that I grew up as the oldest of four with three younger siblings. My mom did home daycare. I went into a billet home that also had three young kids. For me, it was fantastic. It was comfortable.
Yeah.
Even now, 10, 12 years later, you've a close relationship with them. You've seen the kids, grow up, and that was something comfortable for me. If you're an only child, the team might not, and likely won't put you in a situation like that's foreign to you with, younger siblings around. So they do whatever they can in terms of your environment, to make it as comfortable as possible. And on the billet side, just to close that, it really is, the billeting experience is extremely unique to junior hockey. I'm not sure if they have billet, the real billet system in any other sport or not many, and certainly not the way that it is in junior hockey, but the billet experience is extremely special. I feel getting traded to Guelph in a lot of ways completed my junior hockey experience, in having to, in getting to have that sort of relationship. And I know I look back on a lot of the guys I played with, and 10, 12 years removed now, who are still exceptionally close with their billets and are involved in all big life milestones. So that's one thing for sure. The other thing is the programs that are in place. Team to team, the teams all, of course, are going to do whatever they can to make sure that you're comfortable. But things such as the Talk Today, the program that the league has, a custom program with the Canadian Mental Health Association called the Talk Today program, something where all players, staff, and billets will go through, about mental health awareness, how to identify it, how to deal with it, where to get help, how to get help, who to talk to, when to talk to them. And this is not intended to be, in extreme cases, but it's another resource. It's education for the players. It's a transitionary, point in their lives. And the more information that we can arm them with as a league, the easier that transition will be. Academically as well, completely, supported as far as that goes in terms of, the academic advisors having schedules sorted out, working with profs, arranging tutors, making sure their courses transfer back home, all those sorts of things. And one thing, Andy, that the league takes extremely seriously, and has for a number of years, of course, is hazing. And I want to highlight that as well, because you hear stories of 20, 30 years ago in not just hockey, but in sport. And frankly, that's just unacceptable. The league has a very serious zero tolerance hazing policy to make sure that, all the players are extremely comfortable in their surroundings. And that actually has been taken a step further this year, Andy, where there's actually, the league's mandated a no rite of passage rule at all. So things like picking up pucks, all those sorts of duties are to be shared among all team members equally. So, I think that with our staff, with the support of the staff that are in place, and some of the programs that have been put in place by the league, the players are extremely well supported. And I'm not suggesting here that it's going to be an easy transition. It does take work. I don't want to mislead anybody. It does take work. On the ice, it certainly takes work in the classroom. There are expectations. There's commitment that's required, and time management that's required to succeed in these facets. And it can be challenging at times, but I think that players and parents can take comfort in the fact that they do have resources in place, both at the league office as well as on the individual member teams in all of these areas, that can provide the support if they feel they need.
Yeah, 2 points on that. So we talked about the billets.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 50. I done the OHL at 19, so I'm still good buddies with my billets in Hamilton.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's a really unique relationship that you build. I mean, someone opens up their, like, honestly, when I went to my billets in Hamilton, it was a nicer house. It was this is bad to say about my mom, but the meals were better. But it was a great experience, and we were buddies. And
Yeah.
to this day, so I got to get to know their kids and watch them grow up, which is great. And then about the hazing, wow, fantastic that you talked about that, because I was going to slip me, because I don't really think about it. What I hear about the hazing, well, in the 80s it was a little different story. We had lots of that stuff, and it was, I'm not saying this to be negative, but it can, I've seen it. It wasn't just the OHL; it's everywhere. But the hazing or the rookie stuff, it can grate on some people. I've seen it do some things. I mean, it eats at your self-confidence, and I was really, really happy to see that was eliminated, because it's unnecessary. It's absolutely stupidity, to be honest with you. But what you're screaming to me when you say that, and you've taken it to another level, the league's taken it to another level about, not picking up pucks, like it's inclusive now. I think that's screaming out leadership. It's screaming out leadership from the top of the organization down to the players. And I think, as a young guy, I would tell my son going into the league that you are the young guy. Know that you're the young guy. So there are things that you don't have to do, but show that you want to be there and have respect for the older guys. So I love that comment that you made about the hazing. It's great, and that's really good information, because I think that's probably a lot of people ask that question.
And the leadership piece, Andy, I'm glad that you brought that, and I probably should have worded it that way to start, but that's really the way that the league itself views, and the member teams view our role. I mean, you look historically, the OHL has taken, a leadership role in things like player safety, and we have concussion management program. Certainly, the first in class partnership like the Talk Today program with the Canadian Mental Health Association, and programs about respect for women, and social media policies and training, and all things that really emphasize the importance that the league places, on the development of these young men, outside of hockey as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm glad we're talking about this, because this is one of the biggest things I like to talk about. I actually have a company called Growth Mindset, where I teach athletes how to be leaders in every situation, how to think. I think the more that people understand that you're not just playing hockey, you're moving away, whatever you're trying to go for, you're trying to build a dream and achieve a dream. But leadership, your self-leadership is critical. And I think people respect that a lot more than just going out there and performing. So,
and that's the sort of thing that will propel anybody, long past their hockey career.
Yeah.
That's something that, transcends hockey, and will set someone up for the 30 or 40 years of their lives that they have to live outside of the game.
No, absolutely. We're gonna wrap it up shortly, so I'm just cherry picking here. The OHL. Let's go with this one. Advice for. Here's what I see. I'm going to go personal first. Here's what I see. I've seen this over a lot of years. Kids get to about. Let's start with this. Parents start going crazy at about my son's age, about Pee Wee Bantam, worrying about the end result of hockey. Trying to, I don't want to, we'll use the word manipulate their way onto teams, thinking they have to do the right things to get drafted. What I see is kids that are getting to Bantam, minor midget, if they're not the top end talent, I find that a lot of kids lose interest, or parents start losing interest, or pushing them in different directions, because they don't feel they're going to be a first, second, third round pick in the OHL. So therefore I can't make it. So what advice would you have? And this is only your own personal opinion, for kids that are undrafted, or maybe late bloomers, or is this OHL still something that is worthwhile pursuing in your opinion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the reality of the league is that there's a very small number of players percentage wise is ready and able to play in the league as a 16-year-old underage. You still have 4 years of eligibility beyond that. So, for me, I didn't play in the league until my second year of junior eligibility. I was 17 years old. I had still 4 full years. The same eligibility that I would have had should I chosen an alternative route, and had the best 4 years of my life. I mean, I was a 6th round pick. By no means was I, a super highly touted prospect, but still worked my way there. And more than that, there's stories of players that go, are late round picks or do go undrafted. And one Andy that I like to talk about often is someone by the name of Spencer Abraham. And I think that this resonates with a lot of people. And I think that Spencer, in a lot of ways, really encompasses, what we strive to, provide for our players. And Spencer was drafted in Brampton in the 15th round when I was there. And at the time, his dad was the team doctor for the battalion. And I say this with all due respect, but naturally, the narrative around his age group was that he only got drafted because it was a favor. And I was never in those conversations, of course, and maybe that was the case. But what I can tell you about Spencer is that he went that summer, and he had a great summer in the gym and on the ice. Went back and played midget AAA and didn't lose, hope. And in fact, it fueled the fire for him. Had a great year of midget, played a ton, which for development, I think the worst thing players can do is get super hung up on playing at the highest level at the expense of actually playing. But he went back and played midget, had a great year, another great summer. Came to Brampton next training camp, made the team out of camp, and put up 30 points as a rookie defenseman. I don't care who you are, your dad isn't doing that for you, and that was nothing more than sheer work ethic and drive from him. And he's a prime example of someone who ended up having great 4 years in the league. Played on those Connor McDavid, Erie teams, and had a ton of success. What I love about Spencer's story is that he coming full circle, he took university classes while he was in the league, ended up going and using his scholarship, played USports hockey at Queens. I think it was a 3-time All-Canadian on the ice, was a 3 or 4-time academic All-Canadian, and actually finished his undergrad in 3 years, and was using his OHL scholarship towards the Queen's Law School program. Spencer has since been hired at Stikeman Elliott downtown Toronto, and through leveraging his OHL scholarship both in the league and out of the league to the best of its, to the maximum ability, he's set himself up for a career of his own. Does that mean it's an NHL career? No, it's not. But it's an extremely successful one, and one that in a lot of ways that it's his credit for using the opportunities that the league provided to the max of his ability. And it's a story that, frankly, as a league, maybe we don't highlight as often because it's easy, or as often enough, because it's easy to look at your Connor McDavids of the world and your Mitch Marners, but frankly, as a league, we're equally proud of a guy like Spencer who beat a lot of the odds and ended up turning it into what he turned it into, which is quite impressive. But the draft is certainly a first step. I don't want to discredit its importance. It's definitely a nice feather in the cap, and it's an exciting day for a lot of families. But in no way, shape, or form is that the end. If you're not playing in the OHL as a 16-year-old, well, then you're just like the majority of everybody else. And there's a lot of eligibility and a lot of hockey to be played after that. And I think Anthony Sorelli is another example, a guy that didn't play in the OHL until 17 or 18, and then was on the World Junior team at 19 and in the NHL by 21 or 20. Again, nothing more than dedication. And our teams, as well, are always looking for free agent players, and we have the under 18 draft now as well, for players that may have been passed over in the minor midget priority selection. And so we're always, as a league, looking to find new ways to ultimately engage players and find the best players for our league.
Yeah, well, just to talk about maybe what I think a piece of advice would be to a lot of people, and I preach this all the time, is you play hockey because you love hockey. And when you're, I think a lot of people are in a rush to go nowhere, or a rush to get somewhere where they can't be there for 3-4 years anyways. And they take all the little things, all the little obstacles or negatives, and they make it a lot worse than what they need to be. I can say this, and I can say this very truthfully. My OHL hockey career shaped who I, obviously, because you move away at such a young age, but it shaped who I am, like in several ways. But the key to doing that, and I know you'll agree with this, is as a parent, when your kids have a chance to move on and play in the OHL or whatever it is that you're going to do, is to treat it as, I don't want to say like a business, but take it seriously and have your values, like practices, do it the best that you can. Do school absolutely the best that you can. Be real with yourself. And then at the end of the day, if you don't get to the National Hockey League, you've done things right, and you're going to be a good person with good values, honest, hardworking, and you can take that school package and use it in whatever way that you want. And then if you want to continue to play hockey, you can do like you did and go straight from junior to the CIS and have another wonderful career, and that while enjoying school. But I just think if people do it properly, it's a great experience. And but you know what, it comes down with the leadership thing. You just have to do things with the right attitude, and parents have to play a big role in that.
Mm-hmm.
So
No,
I don't need you to elaborate on that unless you want to, and I'll finish with the last question.
Yeah, 100%.
So no elaborating, right?
Yeah. Can
So
we get
okay.
this guy to stop?
Okay, so this is it. This is the loaded question.
Okay.
I don't know if you're ready for it.
Well, we'll see.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Asked it last week. You believe in what you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why? About my kid. He's got a decision to make in the next couple of years. He's a pretty good hockey player. Plays with a lot of good hockey players. What does he do? Why should he go play in the OHL rather than getting his education at Michigan State or something like that?
Yeah, and I'm going to preface this by saying, I'm not naive to the fact that the OHL might not be for everybody, the same way that, the NCAA or the college route might not be for everybody. And I think it's important to note that, you can't paint it all with one brush, and it's very, family decision. But when I'm talking about, the OHL and what we have to offer, I often go back to my experience and the decision-making process there. And I think that, parents and players should take comfort in the fact that, that if you're coming to the OHL, it's very clear, it's documented, it's out there, that the OHL gives you the best opportunity to play in the National Hockey League, statistically speaking. Mm-hmm. It's the best junior hockey league, in the world, and the numbers speak for themselves that we discussed earlier. That's one important piece. But the other important piece is that the players and families can be comfortable knowing that they're taken care of beyond hockey and education. There's stories on top of stories in myself and in Spencer of players who, like the large majority, did not, amount to National Hockey League careers. But the OHL, I can confidently say, is what allowed me the opportunity to have the success that I've had to this point in life. Spencer would say the same thing. There's several others that would say the same thing. So I think it's, the biggest thing is you're comfortable knowing that worst case scenario is your education costs covered and a degree in your back pocket or multiple. Along with the opportunity to play in the best development league in the world. And I think when you combine the two of them, I know that it's cliche, but it really is the best of both worlds. And if you look at the parents and the players' decision-making process throughout this, these times in their minor hockey lives, the decision-making process boils down, to two things, and that's hockey and that's development. And then in a lot of cases, that's education. And I think that as a league, we do an exceptional job, making sure that both of those are taken care of for our players and having that scholarship option for them, having it be available for whatever, their aspirations are beyond hockey. And the other thing, I probably should have mentioned it when we talked about the scholarship in the first place, and I think you touched on it, was that that scholarship is still in place after you leave the league if you sign professionally. So the only league in the world or the only contract in the world that would void your OHL scholarship is a National Hockey League entry-level scholarship or entry-level contract. And in that case, Andy, I think I'd trade places. But Otherwise, you can sign an American League contract, you can sign an East Coast League contract, you can sign in any league in Europe, and essentially have 18 months, to decide whether you're going to access your scholarship or continue playing professionally. And that becomes a bit loaded in one situation as well, where it gives the opportunity for perhaps an overage or a 19-year-old player to say, I feel like I don't have an NHL contract, but I feel like I may be close. I feel like I can sign in the American League and earn one. Great. We want to support that as a league. We want to have these players exhaust all options. And they can do that and have 18 months to decide, what the course of action is. If they stay after 18 months, then, their school package is voided. And often many of them come back and realize that the NHL may be not a reality. They come back and they play university hockey and then return to the American League or the East Coast League, when they've got a degree in their back pocket. So that's a big thing there. And the other thing, that the scholarship has two stipulations, and that is that when you access it, when you begin accessing it, call it after that 18 months, you have to be a full-time student, which in most institutions is 3 classes per semester, and you have to access it continuously. What players, some of them do, it certainly takes commitment, but they can access it while playing professionally. So for example, if I'm playing in the East Coast League or if I'm playing in the American League, as long as I'm committed to take, as long as I'm A, not on an NHL contract, or B, I have the commitment and the drive to take 3 university credits online and do those, semester over semester, just like a normal student, you can, technically leverage that at the same time as well. So that's back to the flexibility that we spoke of. And I think to wrap this all into one, you combine the academics, you combine the education and the scholarship and the opportunities that are there to play in the league hockey-wise. Frankly, that was what made it a no-brainer for me. And, I think that's the way that the league is taking the leadership role and creating a foundation for players' lives beyond hockey is, a big difference maker.
Yeah. So, in the bottom line, again, it comes down to it's never going to be easy either. Like someone says, I want to guarantee a scholarship. I'm going to go get a scholarship in NCAA. You still have to get there. You still have to be a great hockey player and do the right steps to get there. And in 3-4 years, a lot can change. When you go to the OHL and you want to be a pro and get your college education, you still have to do the work. You still have to dedicate yourself to the gym, to working hard in practice, to be a student of the game and be a student of, in school and manage your time and be a student of life, so that when you get to that point, am I going to play in the National Hockey League? Am I not? You can make an intelligent decision and use those 3-4 years that you had, those great years that you had, to make, to enhance your life for the rest of your life. And so, nothing's ever going to be easy. You got to be a, half intelligent person and make some decent decisions, and things tend to work out, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So, okay, Kyle. So I got to be honest with you. You were fantastic today. I enjoyed listening and being an OHL guy, working with OHL players, and being a OHL skills coach. I learned some stuff today. So I thought I knew everything, but I guess I don't. And you know what? I was a OHL guy and I turned out okay. So
yeah, that's it.
So
you and many, many others. I love it.
100%. Last thing, you don't have to say much, but we're going to close. I'm going to let you close it. Is there anything that you want to leave with everybody before we say goodbye? And I just want to say great job, bud.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And, I guess as a closing thing, I would just encourage players and parents and families, make sure you seek out information. I know that a lot of times there's, you're bombarded with it. Some is unfortunately, misinformation, and whether that's reaching out to myself, reaching out to anybody else in one of the other options that you may be pursuing. When you're making decisions, make sure they're informed. I'm not naive enough to think that our options for everybody, just like nothing is. But I want to make sure that when people are making decisions, they're making them with all the information on the table. And I guess the last thing is to your point. Hockey is not a sprint; it's a marathon. Yeah. And I've played with players that were average OHL players and went to USports and ended up, playing in top leagues in Europe for years. There's, Matthew Mahoney is a prime example of a guy who didn't get a spot in the OHL as an overage. He's playing in the KHL now, probably making boatloads of money because he had a dream and he committed himself to it. And he trusted the process. And whether that means you didn't get drafted or whether that means right now, in minor hockey, you're not the best player on the team, just know that it's a long process. And, there's lots of different ways and lots of different roads to get where you want to go. There's no one right route. There's no one right age where you have to be at a certain checkpoint. There's lots of different roads to get to one spot. And, just be confident in the process that you're taking to get there.
Awesome. Well, that was great. That was awesome. I'm going to let you go home now. But I want to thank you, Kyle. I want to thank you once again.
No, I appreciate it.
I'm going to touch base with you tomorrow, just follow up with you.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic. Learned a lot. You're great. And last thing, so you're open to people getting a hold of you? Is that?
Absolutely. I can pass you. I'm not sure if you have an email.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it for you.
You can pass out my email, which you've got. I have no problem.
Yep.
Please reach out to me. Like I said, the biggest thing is information, and I'm more than happy to help out. Anyone who wants to seek out more.
Yeah. No. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kyle.
Thanks so much, Andy. Look, appreciate it. I love what you're doing. It's great.